Hey guys, this is EA Splits from the Plamo Build Report, and this is kind of a new format that I'm trying out again. So in this video, I wanted to try to make kind of like a vlog work in progress for my HG Gouf Revive. And if you are interested in this type of format in the future, please let me know in the comments below. Again, this is a very new thing that I'm trying out, so your response and your feedback is welcome. So starting out, kind of the overall thought process of like how I go out, like before I do some sort of painting or detail work is, I first put together the model itself just as it is, and then I take them apart. Now, the reason I would do this is very simple. I wanted to see the model just by itself of when you snap it together, and then just look around to see what are some of the key points that I could put some more details. And some of the details that I have thought just like in my head while I was like building this and I put it together is trying to make it into more like an RG type of detail. So as mentioned from previous videos and during my Twitch live stream, I wanted to make this goof into like an RG goof because Bandai never released the RG goof when they announced it more than 10 years ago. So the goof fanboy in me just kind of sparked some interest of like trying this out. And there's going to be a lot of steps that I'm going to take over. So why not record myself as I'm just working on this project? This is kind of a good way for me to keep producing videos daily and at the same time just keep throughout my progress with you guys. And the part about just using a part separator, so right now I'm using the Wave part separator, which is one of my favorites so far. It's pretty good enough, it's big enough to kind of fit through the holes, and the blade itself is in more like a circular, triangular kind of a shape. So it's not only is it easy to get through one of those seams, but it's also has a pretty good handle for just basically taking the parts out just like that. So those are kind of the key things that I've been doing, just taking it apart and then just put it rearrange it so that I could see it. And then after I'm done, I put it in these small containers that you can see right over there. Though these are like yellow tool parts, parts collection box, and that's where I put all of these parts just separated by like the head, arm, torso, and any other parts. So that's how I keep things organized so that these small parts don't get lost in the process. While I am just taking things apart, I usually go through the manual and do it in reverse, which is very important because there are some times where if you don't follow the manuals, you will definitely break the part. And I've had a lot of those experience from there. So this is one way I should go, just taking the part flawless. I mean, there may be some parts where you need to use force, but beforehand, what I did was I cut down some of the pegs so that the peg joints for the connection of the part itself won't be that tight, which will give you a very easier time just taking this apart, just by using your part separator or just by your hand. Next, we're going to look at like how I remove the Nubmarks from the part. So for the first time when you do the straight build, for me, because I'm streaming this as I go, I only do like minimal works when it comes to doing Nubmarks. So with that being said, like since I'm going to paint this and I'm going to scribe on top of this later on, this is the time where I have to remove some nubs that's been left over. And I just want to show you guys like how I do remove the Nubmarks in many different situations, and I'll be using several tools depending on what type of a part it is. So usually for round parts like this, and this is Goof's one of the thigh parts that you can see right here. Since those parts are very round, they have like curved edges, and Xeon suits generally have all these curved edges, so you really have to be careful of like what type of sanding tools you use. In the case of this, I'm using a sponge sanding stick or sponge sandpaper, because this will not only help you easily get the nubs removed, but also it will still maintain that curvy edge of a Xeon suit. Now, at some point, I also used the Gun Primer's razor, and that one I used it for like the flat edges because of the shape, and it is a glass file that is really suitable for that type of operation. But if I do use the glass file on the curved edges, what is going to happen is the curved edges will be flattened out, and then when you put it together, the overall matching up with the other part will not match. So it is very important to use a sponge sandpaper for this type of parts so that you don't lose that curve. Generally, when you're looking at like using what grit sandpaper you use, this is really all personal preference, and I sometimes do not use the numbers that you see in the screen here. But in terms of like any other finishes, the recommended order is using 4 different type of grits, and these 4 grits are just as reference, but for some people, you guys have your own way of like knowing which. This all depends on like the skill of how you sand the parts and such forth. For me, I want to just try to give it a little more cleaner edge there, so that's why I use 4 different types. The 4 different types that you'll see here are going to be the 400 grit, 600, 800, and then 1200. And as you know, you always start with the lowest grit to get kind of like the rough edges off. The important thing here is to shave it off so that it will be flat. Then afterwards, you smoothen it out and also fix with the other sanding scrape marks that you see here. So that's why you go higher and higher. So you go from like 600, then to 800. Then finally, you finish it up by adding a fine grit sandpaper into it, which is in this case going to be a 1200. And the other portion, this one's optional, and this one I just like recently just purchased it. You could also use some sort of a vacuum that you can see right here. Now this is the Gun Primer's Void, which is kind of a dual purpose for this product. This one is an air purifier as well as a dust catcher, and this really saved me a lot of times when it comes to just cleaning out the plastic dust, and it's also very good for your health in that matter. So not necessary, but is recommended to have if you have the money or the investment to do so. It really will change your life in a way. And after all of the sanding is done, what I generally do is I also clean out my sandpapers. Now, sandpaper, again, it's a consumable, but little by little, like in actuality, if you're only going to use it for Nubmark sanding, chances are you're going to only use it a little bit, and that's just a waste if you just like throw that away. So what I have here is an electromagnetic cloth, which it captures all of the dust that's on the sandpaper itself. And this, I really recommend everybody to get this, especially if you have like a few budget on like some sandpapers, and this will help clean the sandpapers out without even worrying about like brushing it off with a toothbrush. And you could reuse this over and over again until you feel that the grit is gone. Not only you could use it on like sandpapers and such, but you could also use it on other different products, such as if you have a X-Acto knife with a whole bunch of these plastic scrapes that you've done, you could use that to clean it off too. And this cloth really captures everything pretty well. And the reason why you might want to do this is one, uh, the plastic dust is really not good for your health. And if you start sanding and just like breathing it in, then first off, it doesn't taste that great. I mean, I've had my fair share of those like plastic dust that's going to my mouth because everything's all airborne. And the second portion is going to be like, since you'll be using, unless you use a different type of sandpaper every single time you do it for different color parts, then you run into an issue. Like for example, you were sanding a red part, and then the red dust, plastic dust will be stuck to the sandpaper. And then when you go use that same sandpaper on a red part, then some of those small red dust particles will be on your red plastic white part, which you don't want that. Like that's going to be a lot of work to just clean that off. And yeah, those are kind of the two reasons why I would do this. So as you can see from there, after you've done with the cleaning, again, I generally just dust them outside. But since it's cold here in Michigan, this void is a really great example. It's a great product to have just for your ease of use. Only thing I'd recommend if you're using this product is that you also clean the inside as well, since as you can see from the inside, it's already turning white because of the plastic dust that I have consumed out. That's it for this vlog, and stay tuned for more work in progress of the HG Gouf. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.